The daily life of whales in human care has been greatly misrepresented by internet activists and people hungry for fame, book sales, and ratings. They would have you believe that these animals have absolutely nothing to do outside the scheduled shows, but are left to swim in endless circles, becoming so depressed their dorsal fins flop over, and so nuts from their confinement that they attack and even kill each other. We can assure you these are false claims made by activists with an agenda of their own, that they trust the public to be gullible enough to believe. They can make their wild claims to stir up anger. We can show you the reality. As it turns out, the whales are not bored out of their minds swimming in circles while waiting for the next show. It is part of their daily schedule to get various and new challenges and games every day. Everything from large balls they can toss around and rub themselves against, to fake kelp beds, real kelp, ice, snowballs, jello, and one of the best ways to entertain any animal, to put their food in a hard-to-reach place, so they have to figure out for themselves or even engage in teamwork to get it.
Sometimes we throw giant play toys in the water with the whales, like barrels, balls, and discs. The whales love to push the objects around. They especially love when we play with them. A game of catch, or an all-time favorite, is a game of retrieval.
Get it! Bring it back! Ah! The baby got it!
Some people think this is demeaning somehow, that the fact that a killer whale in a pool, instead of washing a seal off an ice floe to tear it to shreds, has to get some little fish from a plastic barrel is just not the same. But the thing is, whales can hardly care about this. If we grant this, then it must also be demeaning to give a zoo bear meat in an ice cube to entertain it, or for that matter, giving a domestic cat some cat toys to chase around instead of letting it roam freely and brutally kill some birds or rodents. Non-human animals have no concept of it not being like the wild. There's no evidence that they can comprehend containment and captivity like humans can, and they have no idea that what they are doing is somehow different from what they would be doing in the wild. They just know whether they are feeling entertained, drained, and satisfied or not. So quite frankly, it's not like in the wild is only an opinion and feeling of some humans, which is irrelevant to animal welfare. And for that matter, we humans have to invent artificial ways to occupy ourselves every day in order not to get bored, as we live very easy and sedentary lives compared to our hunter-gatherer ancestors. Dorsal collapse has nothing whatsoever to do with mental or physical well-being. In the wild, it can occur because of injuries, but the most common, and in the case of captivity, exclusive cause, is gravity. Wild whales don't spend as much time at the surface as captive whales do, interacting with people and up on slide-outs. Out of the water, a tall, heavy dorsal fin will fall over. Wild whales also dive to greater depths than whales in pools. Even Keiko, once released and out in the open ocean, would never dive as deep as wild whales for whatever reason. Greater depth gives greater pressure, which helps hold a tall fin straight. Some sources, including the movie Blackfish, claim that
dorsal collapse happens in less than 1% of wild killer whales. We know this.
As if it's an absolute concrete fact. This is false. It is only true for one specific population in Norway. Meanwhile, in New Zealand, the rate of dorsal collapse is as high as 23%. There is yet no reliable figure for the species as a whole, as it has simply not been studied enough. Whatever it is, the captive rate is still much higher because it is true that 100% of males in human care get collapsed dorsal fins as they mature. In females, it varies because of multiple factors, like the facility, the behavior and habits of that individual, and genetics. With males, however, their fins are so tall that they don't have a chance to stay straight in a man-made environment the way it's been handled so far. It is worth pondering that if deeper pools were to be built and the whales would be taken out on slide-outs far less, maybe we could get adult males with erect dorsal fins. The male which took the longest for his fin to flop over was Valentin at Marineland, Antibes. Marineland has the largest and deepest killer whale facilities ever built, and one segment of the show consists of a whale and trainer interacting through the glass at some depth, rather than out on slide-outs like at SeaWorld. This might not be why Valentin's dorsal stayed tall and straight longer than those other males, but it's worth considering. In any case, a collapsed dorsal fin does not inhibit the whale in any way. It is simply an aesthetic question. As for confinement, it is no secret that animals, especially more intelligent animals, meaning mammals and birds, can and will develop psychological problems if confined to too small areas, especially if they are denied other forms of exercise and mental stimulation. Horses weave, gnaw on things, or engage in wind-sucking. Parrots pull out their feathers or scream incessantly. Minks and foxes in fur farms will spin endlessly in their cages, in severe cases chew off their own limbs, and so on. Some recently captured whales were said to have been bumping their heads into the walls, but it has never been observed in any captive-born animal or any of the other current whales. Other ways whales could display cage madness would be by endless swimming in circles, constant floating in the corner, paying no interest in their surroundings whatsoever, and not engaging in healthy interactions with either people or other whales. That is not what we see. Still, are they happy? We can never know for sure. We can't ask any animal what they are feeling. Not a whale, not your dog, not the giraffe at the zoo, not the moose out in the forest. What we can do is look at what we know of animal behavior, and one key thing to keep in mind is that animals that are stressed out or in any form of distress don't play. They will only be existing, not living, not interested in their surroundings or interactions with other animals or objects. An animal playing or in any way amusing itself is a good indicator of a happy animal. Not necessarily the best of circumstances, but it is happy and content in this moment, or it would not be doing anything other than existing. Whales and dolphins in captivity play with toys, with their trainers, and with other animals every day. We have yet to find any evidence of cage madness in animals at good facilities like SeaWorld, which is a good indicator of mental well-being. As for whale-on-whale aggression, this is another area that has been greatly exaggerated. We all know they have complex social structures, with one female at the top of the hierarchy and other animals being on a scale of that hierarchy. And in any social structure, animals, including humans, will discipline each other. Animals from wolves to horses, rodents to parrots, will snap or lunge at each other. Toothed whales rake each other. Raking is what it's called when they put their teeth on another whale and scratch marks from the teeth occur. You will often see less dominant animals with far more rake marks than the rest, and this is no more strange than an omega in a wolf pack being pushed down and disciplined by the rest of the pack. It is simply how their social life works, and if you look, you will frequently find very raked out whales and dolphins in the wild too. The movie Blackfish claims that whales are hyper-aggressive and that there is a lot of killing, that whales have died because of this aggression. This is false. The one incident they point to was the death of Can-Do 5, Orchid's mother, in 1989. She was the dominant female and was going to rake Corky and rammed into her at full speed. This fractured Can-Do's upper jaw and she bled to death. It was a tragic accident. But Blackfish tried to spin it as if Corky and Can-Do somehow fought to the death. Not a single killer whale has ever killed another whale in captivity. It does not happen. Some people also like to claim that whales actually suffer from mental illnesses. Anyone who's watched Blackfish remembers Ken Balcombe, a researcher of the southern residence in Washington, claiming Tilikum was under a psychosis. In a 2010 article, he claimed Lolita, living at Miami Seaquarium, has Stockholm Syndrome. The animal rights activist Lori Marino said every single one of them is emotionally destroyed, and keyboard activists everywhere love to use the word depressed about whales. These activists are, as usual, anthropomorphizing wildly, but only in the circumstances that suit them. But if we grant for the sake of argument that whales can be under a depression or psychosis, there is still not a shred of evidence to support it. A depression is a lengthy period of extremely low mood, characterized by things such as not being interested in daily activities, disturbed sleeping patterns, decrease in appetite, very frequent fatigue and loss of energy, feelings of worthlessness, and so on. A psychosis is not an illness, but a collection of symptoms, such as hearing voices, suffering from hallucinations and delusions, and in short, a loss of contact with reality. Even if we, for the sake of argument, grant that whales could suffer from this, it does not in any way reflect the behavior of any of SeaWorld's animals. There are more than 2,500 cetaceans in human care. To say that every single one of them is emotionally destroyed is so unscientific and frankly ridiculous, there is nothing more to say about it. In fact, it would be hard enough to prove that even one of them is, especially in reputable facilities. And the Stockholm Syndrome claim is also quite ridiculous. It means that a hostage experiences sympathy and positive feelings for their captors. And one theory suggests it may exist because of our specific evolution as a species, which again makes the claim that Lolita should have this enormously unscientific and silly. Killer whales naturally have around 50 hooked sharp teeth for grabbing and tearing. Many have, however, noted that whales in human care often have teeth that are severely worn, sometimes completely to the gum line. Some of them claim that many, if not all, whales in human care have completely worn teeth and try to insinuate that it does not happen in the wild, while in fact it does. Only very few captive whales have severely worn teeth, and most of them have perfect or near perfect teeth. There is no data on how often it happens in the wild, but it often varies between ecotypes because of different feeding habits. Whales have very soft teeth compared to us, and they get worn down easily. Worn teeth do not inhibit the ability of zoological whales to feed, since whales don't chew their food, but it can make them more susceptible to infections. We don't know why exactly some whales get worn teeth and others don't. What we do know, however, is that whales in human care have constant animal care teams there to care for them and clean their teeth out, while wild whales, if they get sick, simply have to hope they survive or don't. Speaking about animal care and health, this is where reputable marine parks like SeaWorld excel. Every animal is checked regularly by animal care staff and has a full physical exam every single month. Compare this to how often your pet or the average industry animal gets to see the vet. No, whales are not dogs or cows, but the health and well-being of those animals is just as important. We just care less about them, and it goes to show that SeaWorld's care is world-class.
It starts with our preventive health care program. Whether they're healthy or sick, our killer whales see their doctors once a month, and that's the bare minimum. Compare that to your dog's annual physical, which happens once a year, or even how often you go to see your doctor.
It can be argued that their animals, as well as animals at any reputable zoo or marine park, have better lives than the vast majority of people and animals on the planet, whether wild or living with humans. The only thing they don't have is the ability to travel great distances, and that is not important for their well-being.